Junk food fuels anxiety. Junk food fuels anxiety. Technical news reading in association with Uniquilibrium for World Reading Club. Junk food fuels anxiety. It's from neurosciencenews.com on June 17th, 2024. The summary says, a high-fat diet can disrupt gut bacteria, alter behavior, and influence brain chemicals in ways that increase anxiety. The study found that rats fed a high-fat diet showed less diversity in gut bacteria and higher expression of genes associated with stress and anxiety. I don't know why I'm always somewhat disappointed. I mean, I know that a lot of these studies are done with rats, and rats have so much in common as far as the certain parts of their genome with humans. It's actually a pretty high amount from what I can recall, but let's take a sidebar here for a moment and ask, why are rats so often used in scientific experiments? And because they have many similarities to humans, including anatomy, physiology, and genetics. I'm assuming they're talking about their internal anatomy because, I got some rat-looking teeth, but rats are also easier to maintain than other mammals, such as primates, because they're smaller, require less space and resources, and have shorter lifespans. All right, that makes sense. So that's why the rats are used, okay? All right, so the study found that rats fed a high-fat diet showed less diversity in gut bacteria and higher expression of genes associated with stress and anxiety. This suggests that unhealthy eating habits may not only lead to weight gain, but also negatively impact mental health. Duh. I mean, I think that some of these things is like, we know this all the time already, but then, there's a lot of research to back it up, because that's what science does, right? They look for the evidence all the time. So scientists, I should say we, right, technically. Ooh, look at what I got. An apple wrapped in plastic. If I could get it out of there. I'm not going to eat it right now. But yeah, so it may also negatively impact mental health. All right. Well, key facts. If this ad would get out of the way. What the heck is going on here? See, that doesn't make any sense. All right. Look at this. This is nuts. So there's this ad that is loading, and it's blocking the section that I'm trying to read. What is going on here? Let me refresh this page and see what happens. That is so dumb. Okay, good, it got rid of it. But then another pop-up thing jumped in the way. All right. I just revealed my my secret, my teleprompter. All right, so my high level production. All right. Key facts. A high-fat diet can disrupt the gut microbiome, leading to an imbalance in gut bacteria. I mean, what kind of fat are they talking about, though? Because is it the fat from high-quality nuts and fish? Because that stuff is really good for you. And I know just anecdotally from my own experience, from my own food awareness subjective testing, so key facts, second point. An altered gut microbiome can influence brain chemicals, potentially increasing anxiety-like behaviors. Point. Healthy fats, oh, there we go. They addressed what I said. Healthy fats, like those found in fish, olive oil, and nuts, are beneficial for the brain and may counteract the negative effects of a high-fat diet. So, see, look, they addressed it. I thought they were going to lump them all in one category, and I thought that we had got past that as an entire global community. So I'm glad that they addressed that there. All right. The source is the University of Colorado. When stressed out, many of us turn to junk food for solace, but new University of Colorado Boulder research suggests this strategy may backfire. The study found that in animals, a high-fat diet disrupts resident gut bacteria, alters behavior, and through a complex pathway connecting the gut to the brain, influences brain chemicals in ways that fuel anxiety. Everyone knows that these are not healthy foods, but we tend to think about them strictly in terms of a little weight gain, said lead author Christopher Lowry, a professor of integrative physiology at CU Boulder. If you understand that they also impact your brain in a way that can promote anxiety, that makes the stakes even higher. Lowry's team divided adolescent rats into two groups. Half got a standard diet of about 11% fat for 9 weeks. The others got a high-fat diet of 45% fat, consisting mostly of saturated fat from animal products. The typical American diet is about 36% fat, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Throughout the study, the researchers collected fecal samples. Ooh, they played with poop again. Throughout the study, the researchers collected fecal samples and assessed the animal's microbiome or gut bacteria. After 9 weeks, the animals underwent behavioral tests. When compared to the control group, the group eating a high-fat diet not surprisingly gained weight, but the animals also showed significantly less diversity of gut bacteria. Generally speaking, more bacterial diversity is associated with better health, Lowry explained. They also hosted far more of a category of bacteria called firmicutes, and less of a category called bacteroidetes. Well, I know it's bacterioid. I've never seen either one of those terms before. Firmicutes or firmicutes and bacterioidetes. It looks like firmicutes, but it's probably firmicutes and bacterioidetes. We're gonna have to. Right, so let me see if we can get a pronunciation of this. From Google. Is there let's see, well, there's a whole lot of stuff on here. Doesn't seem to be a pronunciation guide. Where's it at? Well, how about if I go, I know Translate very often has a, let's see. Firmicutes? I mean, is it though? And is it bacterioidetes? Bacterioidetes? I don't think it's pronouncing it very simple, but yeah, that's all I have to go on right now. Bacteroidetes? Okay. We're going to call them firmicutes and bacteroidetes. That's what we're going to do for now. All right. So, these rats. They also hosted far more of a category of bacteria called firmicutes and less of a category called bacterioidetes. Okay. A higher firmicutes to bacterioidetes ratio has been associated with the typical industrialized diet and with obesity. The high-fat diet group also showed a higher expression of 3 genes, TPH2, HTR1A, and SLC6A4, involved in production and signaling of the neurotransmitter serotonin, particularly in a region of the brainstem known as the dorsal raphe nucleus, CDRD, which is associated with stress and anxiety. While serotonin is often billed as a feel-good brain chemical, Lowry notes that certain subsets of serotonin neurons can, when activated, prompt anxiety-like responses in animals. Notably, heightened expression of TPH2 or tryptophan hydroxylase in CDRD has been associated with mood disorders and suicide risk in humans. To think that just a high-fat diet could alter expression of these genes in the brain is extraordinary, said Lowry. The high-fat group essentially had the molecular signature of a high anxiety state in their brain. Significant. Lowry suspects that an unhealthy microbiome comprises the gut lining, or compromises. So Lowry suspects that an unhealthy microbiome compromises the gut lining, enabling bacteria to slip into the body's circulation and communicate with the brain via the vagus nerve, a pathway from the gastrointestinal tract to the brain. If you think about human evolution, it makes sense, Lowry said. We are hardwired to really notice things that make us sick so we can avoid those things in the future. Lowry stresses that not all fats are bad, right? Well, that's the point that I've been wanting to also stress. So Lowry stresses that not all fats are bad, and that healthy fats like those found in fish, olive oil, nuts, and seeds can be anti-inflammatory and good for the brain. His advice? Mine too. Eat as many different kinds of fruits and vegetables as possible, add fermented foods to your diet to support a healthy microbiome, and lay off the pizza and fries. Also, if you do have a hamburger, add a slice of avocado. Some research shows that good fat can counteract some of the bad. About this diet and anxiety research. So the author is Lisa Marshall. Her source, again, is from the University of Colorado. And there's an image in here that you haven't seen. So the original research is under open access, and it is titled High-Fat Diet Microbiome Gut-Brain Axis Signaling and Anxiety-Like Behavior in Male Rats by Christopher Lowry and others in biological research. You know, the last line of this reminds me of something from, there was a movie called Lorenzo's Oil, and basically at the end of the very last sentence of this, he says, some research shows that good fat can counteract some of the bad. Well, in the movie Lorenzo's Oil, not only could good fats counteract some of the bad, it was actually life-saving. So the whole idea was that there is an enzyme that was elongating these fatty acids into very long-chain fatty acids. And the parents of this child who had a disease, his name was Lorenzo, he had this disease called ALD, which stands for adrenoleukodystrophy. And in his body, this enzyme, when it would elongate what they termed to be the bad fats into these very long-chain fatty acids, it built up in the brain and ate away at the myelin, which is the white fat, the sheath that surrounds the nerves and helps to transmit signals and everything like that, and eventually degrades the myelin to the point where the child who is diagnosed with adrenoleukodystrophy or ALD usually dies within 2 years of diagnosis. Well, they loved their child, they did a lot of research, and they found that by using oleic acid, which comes from olive oil, and erucic acid, which they can extract from rapeseed oil, they found that by adding that in very high amounts and reducing the other fats as much as possible, that it triggered a response in the body with this one enzyme that was called competitive inhibition. And so when this signal was triggered in this enzyme that's called competitive inhibition, what the enzyme would then do was that instead of elongating these bad fats, so-called, into these very long-chain fatty acids, it began to elongate just the erucic acid and the oleic acid into the very long-chain fatty acids. And so therefore, through that process of competitive inhibition, as it's called, because the enzyme was inhibited from elongating the bad fatty acids into very long chain fatty acids, and instead was competing. The oleic acid and the erucic acid were in competition. That enzyme, the more of it that they gave that, it was focusing on those, and so therefore it saved his life. Actually, he extended his life for a very long time. I think he passed away at the age of 27 a few years ago, I heard, through the Myelin Foundation. So that is an example of something that I saw. That last sentence of that Neuroscience News article reminded me that some research shows that good fat can counteract some of the bad. Well, in the case of adrenoleukodystrophy, it not only counteracted it, but it was very life-saving. So now I'll just finish here with the abstract. So this is the actual article, but the abstract that this article was based on. So again, the original research is an open access. That means anybody can access it. You can go to Neuroscience News and the link will be there, or I'll put the link will be in the video here on YouTube or wherever this video is as well. So that article is called High Fat Diet, Microbiome, Gut-Brain Axis Signaling, and Anxiety-like Behavior in Male Rats by Christopher Lowry and others in Biological Research. So, obesity associated with the intake of a high-fat diet, HFD, and anxiety are common among those living in modern urban societies. Recent studies suggest a role of microbiome gut-brain axis. Recent studies suggest a role of microbiome gut-brain axis signaling, including a role for brain serotonergic systems in the relationship between HFD, that's high-fat diets, and anxiety. Evidence suggests the gut microbiome and the serotonergic brain system together may play an important role in this response. Here, we conducted a 9-week high-fat diet protocol in male rats, followed by an analysis of the gut microbiome diversity and community composition, brainstem serotonergic gene expression, which is from the TPH2, the HTR1A, and SLC6A4, and anxiety-related defense behavioral responses. We show that HFD, remember high-fat diet intake, decreased alpha diversity and altered the community composition of the gut microbiome in association with obesity, increased brainstem TPH2, HTR1A, and SLC6A4 mRNA expression. So it increased the mRNA expression of those three genes, TPH2, HTR1A, and SLC6A4, including the caudal part of the dorsomedial dorsal raphe nucleus, CDRD, a subregion previously associated with stress and anxiety-related behavioral responses, and finally, increased anxiety-related defense behavioral responses. The HFD increased firmicutes bacteroidetes ratio relative to control diet. The HFD increased the firmicutes over bacteroidetes ratio relative to control diet, as well as higher relative abundances of Blautia and decreases in Prevotella. We found that TPH2, HTR1A, and SLC6A4 mRNA expression were increased in subregions of the dorsal raphe nucleus in the HFD relative to control diet. Specific bacterial taxa were associated with increased serotonergic gene expression in the CDRD. Thus, we propose that HFD-induced obesity is associated with altered microbiome gut serotonergic brain axis signaling, leading to increased anxiety-related defensive behavioral responses in rats. All right, so that is the end of that abstract. Remember, Neuroscience News here, they ask you to join our newsletter, sign up to receive our recent neuroscience headlines and summaries sent to your email once a day, totally free. We hate spam and only use your email to contact you about newsletters. You can cancel your subscription at any time. Neuroscience News posts science research news from labs, universities, hospitals, and news departments around the world. Science articles cover neuroscience, psychology, AI, robotics, neurology, brain cancer, mental health, machine learning, autism, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, brain research, depression, and other sciences. Neuroscience News. This article is called Junk Food Fuels Anxiety. It was published on June 17, 2024 on neurosciencenews.com under the categories of featured neuroscience and psychology. This is the technical news reading for worldreadingclub.com in association with Uniquilibrium.